Hello and welcome to Single Track. How you doing, Matthias?
Well, I'm not singing today, and neither are you, so you can ask
No.
me how I'm doing.
I should be singing. On my run today, I saw a bluebird, the first bluebird of the year. So I feel like spring is here. And, since it's the weather report again, it's warm and sunny.
So for you,
Yeah.
Bluebirds is special because you've been in Montana under a blanket of snow for
Yes.
the past like 18 months or something.
Yes, it is. It was 62 and we were snowshoeing yesterday, and that was insane. So
So,
I was in shorts and a t-shirt snowshoeing, and I don't know the last time I did that.
so tell me about my awesome snowshoes that you've been trying out.
So yes, the Crescent snowshoes that you loaned to me, or I
Loaned.
stole,
Yeah.
they were really awesome. I enjoyed them thoroughly. They're quick and easy to take off and put back on. So, yeah, I had nothing but good things to say, especially up and downhill. I was worried about the grip on them. I was doing some pretty technical stuff in a few places and had no problems. So they're good. I'm gonna try and use them a bit more and see if I can find something wrong with them. But so far, so good. So I'm excited. Thank you for finally giving them to me.
Nice. Well, enough about you and your snowshoes. We actually have guests on the show, and we're
All
way,
right.
way, way more excited to hear about who we have on the show.
Wait. Hold on.
What?
You think people want to hear guests who have done amazing accomplishments more than me talk about bluebirds and snowshoes?
Yes, very
Okay.
much so. So,
Okay. I'm just making sure.
without further ado, we are having on the show Angela and BJ, who are race directors of the San Diego 100. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot. It's great to be here.
Very cool. So before we go into the whole race directing thing, introduce yourself a little bit, because I'm sort of making the assumption here that you're not just directing races, you're runners yourself. You have an individual identity, not just a title. Angela, kick us off. Tell us a little bit about who you are, what got you into running, your favorite races, things like, I'm assuming you're a runner.
I am a runner. If you'd call that running what I do in 100 miles. I have been an ultra runner now for going on 10 years. And before that, I ran a handful of marathons for 3 years prior. Before that, I was not a runner. I actually was more of a weekend warrior, recreational athlete, dabbled in various sports in high school, and then ended up getting away from all sports when I got pregnant with my first child, and she had actually had a heart condition, and so I put all my focused energy on her, and that consumed me, and I ended up just walking away from I'll say letting my health go. So I ended up obese. And then that is when I decided to make a change in my life and found running at the end of a weight loss goal that I had made. And so I ended up doing a handful of marathons at that time, and then trail marathon led me to ultras. So I love the 100-mile distance specifically because I feel like it always teaches me a life lesson. I like how it strips you raw and makes you face your weakest moments. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I find it interesting too that, and this immediately picks up on the deepest part of everything you just said. I mean, it's great to hear your story. And I can very much relate to this in some respect. I've also picked up running fairly late in life and discovering this now. But those ultra distances, they're not just the physical aspect. There is the mental strength that you need to sort of bring in to even attempt something, but while you're accomplishing, it teaches you stuff for the rest of your life as well, right?
Absolutely. And it's a choice, right? I think I love that when you're completely stripped raw, physically and mentally, you have to choose to keep going or not.
Absolutely. And in some regard, it's a great training ground, right? Because you signed up for this when you're in an ultra, right? There are lots of life choices that are thrown at us that we didn't sign up for.
That's our theme throughout the race. We remind people several times during the race. Well, you signed up for this. Remember that.
Awesome. Well, BJ, tell us a little bit about you and how you got into running.
I really kind of stumbled into running just because I really like being outdoors, and I would find myself trying to reach the end of trails and being too slow because I like to see what's around the next corner or around the next bend. And so I started running, and I sort of got into the sport accidentally when my friend signed me up for a race. I thought he said 15 miles. He had said 50 miles. And I was just too stubborn to quit, and really enjoyed it, enjoyed the distance, enjoyed the people. Really thought the support on the course from the fellow runners was amazing. I've never been an athlete. It was really fun to be out there and feel like I was getting something accomplished physically. And so then I just sort of kept going. And San Diego 100 was my first 100. I think, Angela, wasn't it your first 100 too?
It was.
Yeah, San Diego 100 was both of our first 100s. And since then, I think each of us, we do about 100 a year. Yep. Sometimes the same, sometimes different. So
very cool.
So you were talking about the need to kind of hike further and faster as motivation to start running. And I think that's something a lot of our listeners can relate to. That's one reason, those who have heard this story, that's kind of why we started running trails too, was, we're hiking 20 plus miles and it's taking all day. And then we're wondering well, okay, we'd like to be home for dinner. How can we make this happen? And that's when Matthias started running and then eventually convinced me to as well. And so is there a trail now that you enjoy running that used to be too far to hike? And this can go to either of you.
Yeah, for me, a lot of it is up in the Sierras. So we're both based out of San Diego, but the Sierras are only about 4 hours away to get to some of the southern Sierras. And it used to be that I also like to fish a lot. And it used to be that it was difficult for me to get to some of the lakes and I'd have to camp out and carry all this weight. And going up to Whitney, carrying all this weight on your back was just preposterous to me if I could just shed it and get it done. And so definitely there are trips that I do now with my Tenkara rod that I go into some of the horseshoe lakes and I'm able to get up and over Muir Pass and down into the Guitar Lake area and things like that I can now do in one day, and then get to Whitney Portal in time to eat a giant pancake.
That's awesome.
All right, very cool. So let's talk about race directing. You mentioned off mic that this is going to be the first time you're going to be directing the San Diego 100. Did I catch this correctly?
You certainly did.
So do you have race directing experience prior to taking on a 100-miler?
I've been the assistant race director to Scott Mills for the last 4 or 5 years. And BJ and I both, we mentioned that San Diego was our first 100-mile run. And since that run, both of us have been there every year volunteering on some capacity. So for the last 4 or 5 years, I've been part of the management and been able to be the mentee under Scott, and he's taught me the ins and outs and behind the scenes of the race. So I started off when I ran the race in 2007. I loved it, wanted to give back, so I started to volunteer there in 2008 and was quickly put in charge of marking and sweeping with a friend of mine. And so was there out at the race for 3 or 4 days before the race and then oftentimes a day after the race. And then gradually just kind of was around and got a few more responsibilities. And then when Scotty indicated he wanted to transition, Angela, who was the assistant race director, asked if I would be interested in kind of helping her out and coming on board as a co-director because it is a lot of work. And so I don't understand how one person gets it done. Like the two of us, I feel like I couldn't imagine trying to do it by yourself.
I hear you. Tell us a little bit about the race itself. Many of our listeners are here in the Pacific Northwest. Based on Ultra Sign Up, you've got quite a history. This is not a recently created race.
No, in fact, this is our kind of 20th year. We had 1 year that got canceled because of fires, unfortunately. But Paul Schmidt started the race a number of years ago. Actually, his wife put it together as a birthday present to him and invited some of his friends, and that was the first running. And it was used to be in the winter, and it was run through several feet of snow. We actually do get snow in the San Diego mountains once in a while. And it's just grown and grown since then. Paul got it off and running, and then Scott Mills took it over and had some ideas about it and just grew it and grew it and grew it. It's now in June to avoid any danger of fires. For instance, the year I ran it, it wasn't canceled because of fire, but we basically had to be evacuated off the course after we got finished with a fire truck escort because the fires came in that night and the next day. So Scott made the decision to move it to June, and which is our course is, they call it sneaky hard, but we just call it plain hard. It's got about 14,000 feet of elevation gain, which isn't a ton compared to maybe some of the other like hard rock qualifiers or some of those other races. But our trails are super technical, which doesn't ever show up in an elevation profile. And that really slows you down. And the other problem is people who aren't used to the heat in the San Diego mountains, we abut the Anza Borrego desert, and oftentimes temperatures will exceed 90 degrees and even get into the hundreds on the first day of the race.
Oh, wow.
And there's very lots of canyons and very few trees. And so between the heat and the technical course, it can be a very difficult course. It's beautiful. You have views out over the entire desert on what we call the escarpment. You can view out from the Pacific Crest Trail out over the desert. You run around what lakes we do have. And we pride ourselves on our volunteers. Anyone who comes to our race will walk away going, wow, those volunteers were amazing, and they prop us up.
That's really awesome. And especially that you guys come back and volunteer. Obviously, when you ran it, you fell in love with the course and the area itself. Like, what about this course stays with you, like through the year? What holds you on to this course that makes you want to go back year in and year out to either help out or run it?
Well, I definitely think it's the people. And, the people draw you in with the way that they're so inviting and kind. I think after I ran the race and then went back and volunteered, they definitely make you feel like a family, all inclusive. As far as the course goes, I think for me, I love the amount of single track. I love the challenge that all of the rocks face, the rocky terrain gives you. And I really appreciate the different ecosystems that you go through. You have, we run through the desert, we run through the mountains, a lot of different terrain and views that you're going to see. So
this is probably, in terms of the course, this is probably the 7th or 8th different iteration of the course.
Okay.
The original course that I ran was 2 50-mile loops. Now it is more of a lollipop sort of course. It kind of wanders in and out and around. It's not quite a lollipop, but it's sort of that, the way that it carries. I think one thing that people really appreciate about our course is, as Angela mentioned, the single track and the runnability of our course. It can actually be a little dangerous. It catches up on you because there isn't any one step of the course or any one hill where you say, oh, I'm going to have to hike this. It's all the elevation gain is gathered gradually, and it really builds up on people. It kind of catches them and unfortunately sometimes knocks them out of the race. But the fact that you can run so much of the course if you feel good, it's a great runner's course if that's what you like to do.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, because I saw on your website that it is 85% single track, or that's what, I don't know if that's the new course or that's what it was last year, but that for 100 miles, that's a huge amount. Usually you see more dirt roads and things like that. But did you have, being unfamiliar with the area down around there, did you have trouble finding trails that connected to things, or were you able, or is the trail system down there, especially for many of our listeners that, we don't necessarily know the area. So how did you connect it?
There's actually miles and miles and miles of trails out in the San Diego mountains. It was not a challenge to find the trails that sort of connect together for the distance. It's a matter of picking the ones that sort of fit the race at the right place.
Yeah, make it flow.
Yeah, so it's very important to us that the race feels natural in terms of you don't feel like you're doing a whole lot of just out and back or running around to gather miles. It's been our experience that can be very frustrating, where you sort of, okay, now go run the 6-mile loop because we want the race to be 100 miles, not 94 miles.
We also want runners to see all of the beauty that we see across the different trails that we run. So it was important for us to make sure that we get those trails as well to cover that area.
And we've had the same course now for approximately, 4 or 5 years?
I think 4.
Yeah. So we had our old course, the start line burned down. The fires can be a bit of an issue. So we had to move to a different starting location, which caused us to revamp the course 4 years ago. But we've kept that same course ever since. We aren't planning on making any changes. The course has generally been the same with little tweaks for the last couple of years. The other issue is, and I'm sure maybe we're going to get to this, but every time that you sort of change jurisdictions, you have to get a different set of permits. And
Yes.
So one of our goals was to keep our trails in as few and keep our race in as few jurisdictional areas as possible. We've got a great relationship with the parks, the California parks, the Forest Service, but the more jurisdictions you have, the more wild cards that you can get thrown in there. And so our course is specifically designed to try to minimize that burden so that we don't have to necessarily worry about someone pulling our permit at the last minute or something like that.
That was fantastic that you brought this up, because there was a question that was on the tip of my tongue, how the whole permitting system works. Doug and I, we just started a little trail race in our city, and it's only a 3.6 mile loop that we're running several times, and it's in a city park. And it was fairly easy to get the permit because it's just one jurisdiction, and it's just our city, where our city is small enough that I can just walk into City Hall and talk to someone. So it was reasonably easy, but I'm looking.
That sounds great.
Right?
Ours is a bit more complex.
I figured.
So just because in part of Angela and I kind of sort of divided our labor, and one of the things that I took was the permits, fortunately, Scott Mills did a fantastic job of laying down the relationship with the various jurisdictions we have. We actually run through 3 jurisdictions. We run through 2 different state parks and the National Forest Service. And fortunately, the state parks are run by the same sort of head person. And so we only have to do 2 sets of permits. But what the state requires and what the federal U.S. Forest Service requires are sort of can be very different. And so it takes a while to get all of the permits done and it is the very first thing we do. I had the permits done and submitted by February for our June race, to make sure that we have time for any input, any changes, anything that we need from the officials. It can be very frustrating aspects of it. We are completely at the whim of these forest officials. They could decide for any reason to increase our permit price or to not allow us to use a certain trail they allowed us to use before. And so it's very important to us to try to keep those lines of communication open as much and as early as possible so that both parties know what to expect.
Yeah. Does the permitting then also limit the amount of runners you have signing up every year?
It does, and I'm not sure. We haven't really hit the top number. We haven't tried to push what the top number is or ask what the top number is because we think the course can only support so many.
Okay, that's interesting.
As well as for safety reasons is the main thing. So
for those reasons, we're comfortable with our number, and we've increased it a lot over the last 3, 4, 5 years. But this is the cap, and so we have a cap of 275.
Okay.
And I don't know that the U.S. Forest Service would let us go more than that. One of the issues that they raise is that parking is a big issue.
Oh, okay.
And so we've done a number of things to try to limit that, and make that not an issue. For instance, Scott Mills had the idea of creating a solo division, and so there is a solo division where you're not allowed to have any crew or pacers, and you park your car at the start, and that's it. And so that's kind of been the limits. So that's sort of how we manage it.
And our solo division has got a great response. We feel like we offer a course that is very conducive to running solo.
Where we're not required pacers and a big crew and stuff because you have aid stations.
Our aid stations are anywhere from 6 to 8 miles apart. Very well stocked, very knowledgeable captains.
All of our captains are San Diego 100 finishers.
Oh, yeah,
sweet.
Cool. Yeah. So how far from the nearest settlement, from the nearest town, is the race start?
Well, Julian is 9 miles away out there, but I'd say from, the city.
From real civilization.
Yeah.
All those Julie listeners are cursing now.
From my house, it's a 45-minute drive to the trailhead.
That's not so bad, though. 45 minutes?
Yeah.
No, a lot of people that run the race will stay in San Diego and drive out the morning of the race. Most of the locals do that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not too bad. It's one of those things that's nice about San Diego County. People have even driven in the morning from LA and places like that because it's only, maybe 2 hours, 2.5 hours to LA to our start line.
Oh, wow.
What time is race start?
7 a.m.
No, that's not so bad.
6 a.m.
6
Sorry.
a.m.
6 a.m.
Used to be 7 a.m.
There you go.
Change it to
Yeah, 6 a.m. is a little different. That 7 sounded sweet. I was like, yeah, you can drive 2 hours before that. But
7 was sweet. We had a lot of the runners complain that it would get too hot.
yeah.
I liked the 7 a.m. start.
Yeah, exactly. You can actually have like a decent wake up. And so with the race itself, obviously it's going through different jurisdictions. And you touched on this before, but the terrains that it's going through, you said it goes from desert to mountains. What's the high point on the trail? What's the low point? I mean, do you have any of that information? So if people are interested, like, what can they expect from thin air at least?
So the highest point on the race is 5,600 feet.
Okay.
The lowest point is probably about 3,500 feet in that neighborhood. We don't have any of the big gains and losses. I think the biggest climb is about 1,400 feet that you do at any one time. And that one's spread out over a few miles. It's spread out over, 4 or 5 miles. So we don't have those big steep climbs. It's possible we have some of the climbs out in San Diego. Unfortunately, those then bring you down into the desert in June, which is not a good spot.
Yeah.
We choose not to send people there.
Yet.
On the other side, if it's full-on desert, you won't have to worry about wildfires because nothing burns there.
There's nothing there. Exactly.
Only the people.
We're going to consult with you, Matthias. That's a great point.
You mean bad water will never have any issues with that, with wildfires? That's
right. Probably not. But we'd like to think that it's funny that the fire season is very limited in San Diego in general. There's about a 1 month window where you worry about wildfires towards the end of the dry season in October. And it's burned through now a couple of times, and it's amazing to me after the fires how quickly everything comes back. The runners in our race will start going up a mountain called Middle Peak, and that burned completely back in 2003, 2004. And it's amazing to see how much growth has already come back, how many of the oaks survived. The pines didn't do as well, but many of the oaks survived, and how quickly all of these other plant communities are sort of taking over the trail.
That's awesome to hear. Down between at the border of Oregon and Washington, the Gorge 100 race had big sections burned out, and they've been on hold indefinitely to be able to conduct their race because so much of the trails had been destroyed. So they've been eagerly waiting to hear when and if and how they can reopen that race, because it was such an iconic race, and the wildfires took just too much of the trees that held the hillsides in place, right? So I think they really had to worried about erosion there.
Have you guys run any of those trails? They're beautiful. I've seen the damage, and it's very unfortunate. I love running those trails. They're beautiful.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely an iconic place to run along all those waterfalls. It's insane what a wildfire can do to an area like that.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that we're seeing with trail running now is that we are really the more races we have and the further out we go, the more of these areas are being impacted by wildfires. So it's interesting that you guys have already kind of been dealing with that since you've been an older race. You've been around for 20 years, and you're kind of old hat at this.
It's one of the things to think about as a race director, especially with BJ and I coming on, and we're fortunate, as unfortunate as it is, to have that history, because when you're in charge of a race like that, you need to have a plan should something like that happen.
And that's one of the things we learned. It's because of the dangerous nature of our race in terms of all the 100-milers obviously have a dangerous element to them, but where we have these extreme heat issues, it is not unusual for us to have somebody go down, and unfortunately, we need an ambulance to get them to a hospital to look for heat illness and things like that. And so one of the things we learned from Scotty is that all of this is great, but safety is number 1, 2, and 3. And so we have all kinds of safety backups that Scotty installed, and then we've grown a little bit. We've continued to grow to make sure that even though our race has some dangerous elements, that we can make it as safe as possible for our runners.
Do you employ the similar technique that I've heard Western states did for a few years? I don't know if they're still doing it, where they weigh runners.
No.
Have you heard that before?
No, I think that's been disfavored. I think that sort of it's everything I've read on the science of it is that that's kind of disfavored. It doesn't really tell you whether you're hydrated or not. A lot of it, we are very clear in our runner briefings that the runners need to be able to understand the signs of heat illness. We have a medical director that is putting together a video this year that's going to be sent to all the runners as to what to look out for heat illness and things of that nature. And all of our aid station captains are drilled, and they know first aid. We have nurses and EMTs on the course, and they all are made aware of the signs of heat illness because that's the number one thing we're worried about, and how to recognize that. But you can get all kinds of crazy stuff. Last year, we had someone have heart difficulties and had to be taken to the hospital because they were having heart difficulties. So you never know what might pop up.
Yeah, absolutely, especially on a 100-miler, right? That's where the fun run takes a completely different course, right?
Would that be type 2 fun or type 3?
Yeah, exactly. Well, that requires you to have good communication, good training with your aid stations. Let's talk about the aid stations a little bit. You talked about volunteers early on and how proud you are of your volunteer crew. How many volunteers you're working with for a 100-mile race?
We actually have close to a 1-on-1 or 1-to-1 ratio. Well, when we end up with 275 starters, we have about 300 volunteers.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you said most of those, well, the volunteer captains you said were finishers. Are most of the people involved?
Captains, yeah. Probably 90% of them have all run San Diego 100. And then each of the captains find they have their own crew of volunteers, and some of them are people that have just emailed us and they want to help out, and some of them are friends of the captains, and they are usually ultra runners. Mm-hmm. So majority of the 300 volunteers are ultra runners. So we have the aid station captains, and then we have the other key volunteers. Like BJ said, after he ran San Diego 100, he became in charge of marking, helping out there and knowing the course and all of that. So we have people who do that, people who do logistics, people who work at net control and track the runners. So yeah, they've almost all of them the key volunteers have run San Diego.
And we run, our key volunteers run from anywhere, and our volunteer group run from anywhere from, like I said, the marking captain, sweeping captain, to somebody who sets up the finish line and takes down the finish line. There's every aspect of the race. We are fortunate to have dedicated volunteers that have experience that get involved in that, and then we try to match up new people that can then work under these people, so they can either go to another area or run the race themselves, so that we have 2 or 3 people that are trained and feel comfortable doing certain things that they enjoy and are involved with the race.
We have some of our key volunteers and aid station captains who've been volunteering at the race since the beginning. So, for example, our aid station captain this year at Dales, John Martinez, he was part of that original run with Paul Schmidt when they ran a 100-miler, and then he offered a 50-mile option, and John Martinez became the guy who headed up the 50-mile option, and he's now the race director for the PCT 50. So it's a very unique and close-knit community in that a lot of us train together. We'll go on training runs together. We do trail work together. BJ and I pretty much volunteer at every race that we have in our San Diego mountains. And then in turn, all of those race directors and a lot of those runners will come and help us at San Diego 100. So it really is a supportive community.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's fantastic. So let's talk a little bit about aid station food and stuff. And we go twofold. Talk to us about what you love at an aid station, and then what you stock at an aid station for the race, and what you see runners enjoying the most.
You are going to get 2 very different answers here.
Yeah, that's why I may ask.
It's like my favorite question to ask people.
I run to eat. And you couldn't force a goo packet down my mouth for $1 million. I eat Twinkies, I eat Three Musketeers, I eat pizza, sandwiches, Slurpees, anything I can kind of get my hands on that looks delicious. And so Angela and I, and let me preface this a little bit, we come from a little bit different running backgrounds. Angela, if you were to look Miss Shartel up on the ultra sign up, she's a little embarrassed, but you'll find her at the very top of most of the races she's entered. Whereas you will find me well at the back. Maybe it's because I eat all those Twinkies and stuff, but so I'm not looking for performance food. I am looking for what looks good, that's going to give me enough calories to get me to the next station. So I'm concerned about making sure the aid stations have enough fun junk food for the back of the pack. I think Angela might have a different answer for you.
Well, that's emotional food. That's super important, right? I mean, if you're totally low,
when things are really bad.
Absolutely. If you come to an aid station, you're low and you see, I don't know, a Twinkie. I mean, that lights you right up.
I know things are really bad now. Here, have some M&Ms.
Exactly.
No, definitely. I do it a little different. I look at the aid station, the food as fuel. So I do a lot of liquid energy, carbohydrate. So I do that. I do gel packets. I do fruit, eat fruit rather. And I am definitely looking for more of a performance based stop and refueling. But I could say from the race directing standpoint with aid stations, we try to keep it general. Our aid station captains buy all of their own food for the aid stations. We just send them money to do all that. But we typically look for salty, sweet, crunchy, soft, hot, cold, some option there. And then we also want to make sure that there's a vegan option. Mm-hmm. And this year, that was high on our list. We sent out a survey last year to the runners, and that was one of the strong feedbacks that we received is more vegan options. So we're educating our aid station captains this year on what is vegan, and then sending them some recipes as well as some options on what to buy.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you also, or do the race aid station captains also consider what time of day the runners will come through?
100%. And that's one of the beneficial things in our favor, that most of our aid station captains have been captaining their aid station from anywhere at this point from 3 to 14 years. So they all keep pretty good records of what went well, what didn't go well, and then the time of day.
What's the strangest request you guys have had, or the strangest thing like for food you may have at an aid station? I know you know, like sometimes I mentioned it before, but like, you know, just I had never run a race that had otter pops, and that was the greatest thing to me. You know, little things like a shot of beer or, you know, Red Bull and vodkas were in play. And I'm like, this is bizarre. I was not expecting it. We've talked about like watermelon, you know.
Sounds
it's
like there are a lot of
not
guys
everybody
like
has.
me that were out there running those stations.
Oh, no, I'll tell you off mic which ones they are. You'll love them.
Boy, I'm trying to think of a strange request. I feel like everything you've mentioned we have at our aid station.
Yeah, otter pops are a huge hit at all of our aid stations. It's so hot, and it seems like cold sugar is always a big play. I can't think of any really odd requests. I wish I had some great story about someone coming in. I'll tell you one guy. He only drank milk.
Oh, that's terrible.
Oh.
Yes.
And he wanted not chocolate milk. He wanted to know if we would have regular milk at all the aid stations. And I said, we will have regular milk at none of the aid stations. You will need to supply all of your own milk, sir.
Was he specific about wanting whole or 2% or 1% or?
No, he didn't
go into detail.
Didn't go into detail, but I remember that specifically.
Well, you shut him off right away. If you would have said, we could probably make that happen, he probably would have said, well, actually, while you're at it,
we like to supply as much as we can for our runners and provide as much variety as we can so they see something different at every aid station. We can't always do that, but at the greatest degree we can. But milk is out.
Yeah. Milk will never come to San Diego.
Yeah. That sounds awful.
Bring your own cow. You know, that's not going to work.
This is the title of the podcast episode. Milk will never come to San Diego 100.
And that one guy is going to be like, oh, I thought this was a private conversation. I was going to do it this year without the milk.
Since we're laughing here, I just imagine you had mentioned that you send money to all the aid station crew chiefs. I'm trying to imagine if you would have to buy all the food for all of the aid stations, what that shopping trip would look like.
Well, and there's some races that do that.
Right.
For instance, my understanding, and I'll just talk about Cascade Crest because we have a relationship with Cascade, and we run an aid station up at Cascade every year. And my understanding is to the large degree they do, and Hard Rock does. Hard Rock to a large degree, they buy all of their own food and give it to the aid station captains, and the aid station captains then supplement all the basics.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So, I don't like grocery shopping.
Yes. I can't imagine going into I don't know if you guys have been out to Silverton out in Colorado, but it is not a large store. I'm sure they go to Durango, but that's a lot of groceries to haul over a lot of mountains to get over for Hard Rock. That's
the Amazon Prime all of that.
Yes, they should.
They have a giant drone that comes in.
Exactly. Very cool. How many aid stations are you? Is that for you guys?
We have 15 aid stations. Two of them are double pass, so 13 stops.
Cool.
Does that include the one we added this year?
No. Well, we didn't announce that one.
we got an exclusive.
We did it. It does not include the two that we normally have, but we don't announce because we feel like they're unexpected pleasant surprises at a time when you feel like you may not be able to make it.
San Diego 100 exclusive.
Nice.
That's such a good idea. I like that.
We like to make sure that sometimes there's a little extra. They know about the one where there's a water station that we're putting in the middle of sort of the hottest climb of the day. Because we just want to make sure it seems to be the crux of the race. We get the most drops at the aid station after that climb. And we want to do everything we can to get these runners across the finish line. We know how difficult it is. We've both been out there. We've both suffered. We both have DNFs. We know what it can be like, and we really want everybody to make it. And so we're hoping that this will maybe bump, even if we can get, 4, 5, 6 extra people across the line, it'll be great.
We're getting a lot of flack from previous finishers who would like to to remind us constantly that they did it without these stops.
Oh, there you go. You completely
You're gonna have
changed.
to start adding an asterisk.
They're like,
to
can
everybody.
we provide the water from the class of 2018? Can we provide this?
Right,
Yeah,
right.
so and where they'd get the water like directly from some putrid puddle or something like that. So
With
we said
a
no.
sign, here's your water. We didn't need it. But
Yeah, we said no. We'll
if
take
you
care of it. Thanks, guys.
Oh, yeah. Well, those new 100-mile runners, they're all getting soft now.
Yeah.
That's right.
But unfortunately, we have that water stop. We're going to have that water stop at the top of the crux climb, and then we have a popsicle stand 2 miles from the finish.
Yep.
About.
Yep. That comes and goes. Sometimes it's there on a hot year. Sometimes it's not. So don't count on it, any listeners.
That's right.
But we try to put aid in some surprise places if we think people are really struggling or particularly hot year or something like that. We do everything we can to.
Get you to the finish.
I would say, yeah. I was going to say alleviate suffering, but no, not that. Just to kind of get people across to the finish.
Give them an option to succeed, right? Give them.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
So, if you're giving them all the options, I was curious about this. I looked it up, but I see that there is somebody over 70 running. Do you happen to know the oldest finisher you guys have had?
That would probably be Dennis. That's Dennis Trafficante.
Okay, yep.
Dennis has last year he went out to Western and he tried to be the oldest finisher at Western. I don't think he made it, did he? But he's been a long time runner out here in San Diego County. He's been
Local guy.
All the races, always volunteers when he's not running, usually doing the sweeping. And it's exciting to see him back this year. He finished what?
I think he can get it done.
Yeah, I think he can get it done. I don't remember the last time he got a finish, but I would say he's probably right up there amongst the finishers. We had a guy last year from Australia.
I was going to say, how old was he?
And he was in his early 70s, and this guy was amazing. He ran the whole thing with an oven or a stove, a camp stove, in case he wanted to make soup.
That was great.
And he had a giant yellow rain slicker like he was the Gordon's fisherman, and all he had for his water bottle was an old empty Gatorade 32-ounce bottle that he kept in his JanSport backpack. And he finished with like 15 minutes to spare.
That is an ultra running pioneer.
And was one of the originals, and he had to go back to his farm in Australia and went right to the airport and hopped on a plane to fly back to Australia.
Wow.
Those are the stories that make you feel really slow and weak. That's amazing.
He's an interesting guy. I wish I could see him again. I hope he'll come back one year and do it again. He's got a great running resume. I looked at his ultra sign up profile, and he's got a great running resume. He's run big races all around the country. He just kind of pops in and does them, and then pops back to his farm and his wife, who we called the Trouble and Strife.
So I hope he shows up again and is just like all decked out with like everything Hoka or like Solomon sponsorships.
That would make me cry. I'd be so sad.
Like he's just like the next Killian, but like 80 years older.
Yes, exactly.
So for you personally, what's your dream race that is on the horizon? Something that you personally like looking forward to running?
I mean, I've never run Hard Rock. I'm a 6-time lottery loser, I guess. So I definitely would like to go out and do that course. Mm-hmm. But other than that, I just check out different courses, and then, through volunteering or word of mouth and things that I see on social media or websites. And then I kind of decide what race I want to run based on that. And races call me for different reasons. But if I don't feel some connection to the race, then I'm not going to just sign up to have a 100-mile race. But Hard Rock is something I've been wanting to do for years, and there's a couple more on my bucket list, I'd say.
For me, my dream race, and this sounds corny, and I apologize in advance, but my dream race is the next one. Every race is something new and special, or I wouldn't be out there doing it. I mean, running 100 miles can really suck. And I really that's the distance I like as well. And so every race to me that I do that's going to be 100 miles is really special, even if I'm going back. So this year I'm going to do I Am Tough in the other direction than I did it before. And I couldn't be more thrilled to do it.
That.
Yeah, we're both doing
nice.
I Am Tough.
Yeah.
So, so it's going to be an interesting, year, but there's so many beautiful races. There's so many great races. And I guess the one I haven't done that's kind of a dream that I'd like to get to is Never Summer 100K.
Oh, yeah.
It just seems like it's a really pretty laid back, easygoing race. And that's my kind of style. What about you guys? What's next for you guys? What's your dream race?
Doug, what's your dream race? You start off.
Oh, my dream race? I struggle with races because I'm kind of the same. Like, I see one, and if it speaks to me, I'll sign up for it. Like, that's kind of – I would love to do something along the Columbia Gorge, but I have all of these other non-race long runs that are that I am looking forward to someday maybe doing. So, I mean, I'd love it if I could do a race, but, like, you know, part of me wants to run from Red Lodge, Montana, all the way through over the Beartooth Highway, drop down, run through Yellowstone Park, and then back to my place in Livingston. And that would be like a very scenic, incredible multi-day run. But again, it's not a race, and it's, you know, it's if I did it from Red Lodge to Gardner, right at the entrance to Yellowstone, then it would be about 100. Then it'd be 150 the other way. The next race I'm running is the Rut 50K. I have a DNF in that. Yeah, I have a DNF in that. The first year I ran the 28K with very little training, and I was the second to last finisher, but I still finished it. And I was like, oh, I can jump up to the 50. And I took some Talus off the leg, and I was like, you know what? I am now not mentally in this. I'm hobbling. Then I went to the aid station, and they made me go get an X-ray and found out like it might have been fractured a little. And I was like, okay, that was the right call. But like, so now I have to go back, you know, and I have to finish it. But it's also, you know, when else do you get to an 11,000 foot peak on a race? You know,
very rare.
Yeah. So it's. And then, yeah, there's a lot of other ones. I was just looking at you guys' course, too. And, I mean, between that, the PCT 50, like, those both are kind of like, weather-wise, it's great. Terrain, it's beautiful. It's not going to be, you know, too enclosed with trees like a lot of Pacific Northwest is, where I think I'd get mentally thrown off. But if I have openness, then that's my long way of saying I'm not quite sure.
What I love about picking races is that you can explore a completely different climate, temperature, vegetation in an area where you don't necessarily have the expertise of knowing how to lay your own path. I mean, a few years ago, Doug and I ran rim to rim to rim, and the trail is so obvious and well documented that you can drive. I had never been before the Grand Canyon, and so we drove down, we showed up the day before, and then we ran it. And so that is very different, and I think those races give you a similar opportunity where you don't have to pore over maps and study weather patterns or whatever. And I think that's what draws me to picking out races where I can distinctively either say, okay, I want to find a race in an area where I always wanted to explore anyway, or a race particularly attracts me to give me that chance. We ran Broken Arrow last year after I had seen the Sierras the first time the year prior, and I was like, this is an area that I want to explore, the area around Lake Tahoe, and what better way to explore an area than just signing up for a race, right? Then you have the course laid out, you can show up, you know that the race directors will pick a course trying to cover the most beautiful areas. And now you can sort of check that off and say, okay, I've experienced that from visiting a place. And I think that's, for me, what attracts me to races. You know, and I'm from Germany. I grew up in Europe, went to the Alps on vacation. So the ultimate dream races for me are always over there. in a way of trying to get back to those memories that I had as a kid.
That sounds great. I would just chime in too that hearing Doug talk, it's the most rewarding races to me, because I hate to be the cynic here, but race directors, in my opinion, don't always put out the course that covers the best trails. A lot of times because they can't, because of the various jurisdictional difficulties. There's lots of places where it would be great to get to run. There's a place in San Diego. There's a beautiful place called Secret Canyon that we hold all kinds of informal runs there and training runs there, but we can't do a race there because it's wilderness. And so
that's a good point.
You're not allowed to cross wilderness or anything. So I think that some of the adventure runs, I like to have a good mix, right? I mean, you have, I'm doing an adventure run this year up in the Northwest, where we're going to go from Canada at the headwater to the Skagit River. We're going to trace the Skagit River until we get to a dam, and then we're going to get in our kayaks and kayak out to the ocean.
Amazing.
So those kind of runs can be really rewarding, but yeah, then it's a ton of planning and where we're going to eat, and are we not going to get eaten by bears and stuff like that.
Oh, you'll be fine with bears there.
These bear critters are foreign. They're foreign down here in San Diego, so I don't know about that.
Yeah, we've got experience with the bears. They don't show up too often, right?
Yeah. I have still yet to encounter a bear on a run out here in Montana, and that is my biggest fear. It's because I'm out here. I run by myself. I'm in the middle of grizzly country, and it's kind of like, well, what do you do? And I'm just like, well, I'm gonna be careful, and that's the word. Well, it's actually, you run with bear spray. You practice with bear spray, taking the safety on and putting it back on, and then you feel comfortable enough. And
I heard the bear has to be real close for that to be effective, though.
It actually works quite well. It's such a terrible smell for them that immediately when they smell the bear spray, it's the most effective way to deter a bear attack, including firearms or anything. They've done studies, and bear spray is the best way. And it's also, a great way in case somebody's huge wild dog comes running at you too.
Sure.
Figured you'd like that one, Matthias. No, it's funny that, everyone that's a trail runner we feel like we're all in this community together, and it's a very tight-knit community. And then when we speak to each other, we each have these little quirks of what we enjoy more, what our motivation is, and they're all so different. And it's just, there's so much individuality in this group that when you look at us and we're all kind of dressed the same at the starting line, you don't understand where we come from. But
that's a great point.
I mean, you guys each have these great stories, and you're talking about some of your training runs. Like, where do you run just to get peace of mind and to return back to just calm and happiness? Like, do you have a trail that you would like to mention that, maybe somebody could go check out if they're down in that area and be like, this is it? Yes.
For me, it's right in my backyard. It's Mission Trails. It's where I learned to become a trail runner. And, there's just a lot of single track that interconnects and no coverage from trees or anything. And that's where I go, and I could just run out there for hours. Usually about 15 to 20 miles, sometimes more. But yeah, that's where all my pictures on social media come
that's
from.
cool.
So you can see all the different single track and the changes, from when it's really dry and rocky and ruddy to right now, just beautiful wildflowers and green hills. So for me, that's the most peaceful place. I love it out there.
And you've been able to see that for years on end through all the seasons, so you probably know every rock, every route.
And the best part, I just leave from my house.
Yeah.
So
That's always.
I run through little trails behind houses. I usually get out to Mission Trails in about 1.5 miles, and then it's just this open playground. Breathtaking to me.
That's awesome.
For me, there's a little trail that's over by this reservoir called San Vicente Reservoir, and it's a piece of San Diego history. There used to be a water flume that ran from the mountains to the city to get the water supply. And actually, they used to put rafts in it, and the mayor used to go ride in it and stuff back in the early 1900s and stuff. But a lot of that flume trail is still present, and you have to kind of search pieces of it out. And there's a couple really nice pieces that you can still access by the river that have this, or the reservoir that have this nice flat level area, but because there's access to water, it's chock full of wildlife, and you don't see running water very much in San Diego County, and there's always creeks and so running in that area, so it's always real pleasant to see and hear that. If anyone was wanting to do a sort of iconic San Diego run, I would again send them to Secret Canyon, which is you can find it on, by looking through the Forest Service, and it's a 16-mile trail that doesn't cross a road, and which is rare in San Diego County, and it's all single track, and you run alongside of a creek that flows most of the year, and we just did that a few weeks ago as a big group, and we had almost waist deep creek crossings in a couple places, which is really rare. And then then you work your way up and you get alongside that flume trail again, another piece of it, you run along there, and there's old mines and things like that, and then you drop all the way back down to the creek again, and it's beautiful. It's 16 miles one way. You can drop a car at either trailhead or, just do some chunk of it. And if someone's looking for a quiet trail, most days when we run that, we don't see a single other soul.
Just remember there's the water out there. It's brutal in the summer, so.
Yeah, when the creek's dry, it's going to be a difficult one.
I would say another iconic one, and it's on San Diego 100 course, is Noble Canyon. We have a saying after 10 years of running when we can't think of a place to run. Well, there's always Noble Canyon. Mm-hmm. And it's, you take that, you start at the Noble Canyon trailhead or Pine Valley trailhead, and then you go up to Penny Pines. It's 10 miles.
Yeah.
And, that's where you get water. So you have a water stop for an out and back, but brutal. It's a brutal climb.
Oh yeah. I'm looking that up right now.
So of course we had included on the course.
Yes.
But the nice part about that climb is you see all these ecosystems in one. You start off literally with exposed rock, cactus, desert animals, lizards, things like that. And by the time you're at the top, you're at pine forest, thick trees, and so it's what you can see in that 10-mile climb. The changes are incredible.
Snakes.
Yeah, lots of snakes.
Yeah, you see what your fear of bear is my fear of snakes. I can live without the snakes.
Snakes usually announce themselves.
That is true.
How do they announce themselves?
The rattle.
Oh, okay.
And if it doesn't have a rattle, then it's not dangerous. You don't have to worry about a snake.
At least not around here.
Not around here.
There you go.
Yeah, we have this. We have the same here, and I've still yet to see a rattlesnake. So I'm like, whatever. Like I just see all the others. I just see all the other snakes, and I'm like, I don't care. You're fine. But yeah, if I hear a rattle, then it's the same as probably if I heard a bear crashing through the woods. It's interesting. You guys you're talking about things in a way that I just like to reiterate every so often, is that a lot of the stigma of trail runners when hikers see us out on the trail is that we don't enjoy the trails as much, and we're just out there kind of running. We're so hyper focused on running. And the way you guys are talking, you're talking about the changes in ecosystems, the plants you're seeing, all of these things. Do you feel you are more in tune with the landscape now that you run it, or have you always been this way in your life?
I definitely have not always been that way. I'm more in tune with it since I've become a runner, and I'd say more so since I've done 100-milers, because you have periods where you are hiking and you need to draw that you need to go to that inner place where you can find the reason to keep going. And I think a lot of times remembering that you choose to come out and do those kind of races or training run, you think, for me, when I'm doing 100-mile races, I think back to training runs and I make those connections like, oh, this flower looked like that one on that training run where we were climbing up to, whatever peak and such. And it's made me a lot more aware, I would say, through hiking more than running. But I think also I've had, over the 10 years, I've had some issues with injury where I've had to take some time off. And I think that time off and then starting over has also made me really appreciate what the run gives me, not necessarily the race, but what I'm drawing from the community and the people, the friendships that I've created and fortunate enough to have. and building on those and I guess reinforcing those.
Yeah.
I've kind of always been like that. I've always been a super tree hugger and have always really gotten into being outdoors and things. What's interesting to me is the sort of pact I made to myself as I, realized kind of what my place was going to be in the running world, was that I was never going to sacrifice the enjoyment of the outdoors for a good training run. In other words, I feel like I'm really cruising and doing well, but then I see this really interesting nature interaction. I remember one time I was out cruising in Mission Trails, and which Angela mentioned, and I needed to get a certain time. I was really trying to get a certain time, and then I saw a tarantula hawk attacking a tarantula, which is this neat nature interaction that you almost never see.
Great thing to see.
And so I was like, well, that's when I kind of realized that was my deal with myself, was that I'm always going to put the natural experience and being in tune with the run. And you'll see things when you're running that you don't when you're hiking, because when you're hiking, a lot of times you're talking or you're looking at the big vista and you're not looking at the plant right in front of you, the rock right in front of you, what's going on, in sort of a very micro sense, which is where a lot of the interesting things to see are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Love it. Like I think that's quite an experience you had. So I'm sure it's someplace you go to often and you're in your pain cave.
It's funny that you say that, because I was thinking I feel like I become more hyper aware the longer I've been running, because you start hurting and you're losing the rhythm, and then you're like, wow, that's a really cool plant. Did you see that here?
Is that before the hallucinations start?
Of course, for me, because I'm lazy, I go, this is a really good place to sit down and watch this interaction.
Yeah.
Just need to start running with one of those little chairs with you, right?
That's right. I really need to take this in.
That's amazing. All right. So, I think before we let you guys plug some of your websites, social media accounts, or anything that you would like to plug, to our listeners, I want to, share a couple things with my listeners, with our listeners before we go. And that,
thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And that is, Patagonia just sent me their brand new book, Training for the Uphill Athlete. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that book. It's a manual for mountain runners and ski mountaineers. And so they have, and they being Steve House and Scott Johnston, they had released a book a few years ago called Training for the New Alpinism. And it was a really detailed breakdown training manual of how you can become a better climber through specific focus on training and nutrition and everything else that climbers never before really had done. Climbers, if they wanted to go get better, they just went out and climbed more rather than actually looking at the physical aspects of what made a good climber. Well, those guys realized that the book sold so well, and the people who actually were buying it, aside from climbers, were trail runners, and there was no book really out there that was really talking specifically about that. So they teamed up with no other than Killian Jornet and released a brand new book called Training for the Uphill Athlete. And I'm super excited of digging into it. I actually haven't had a chance to read much other than the introduction chapter. What makes it super cool, aside from the awesome pictures in it too, is they have little athlete profiles and little short stories of all of the top athletes that we sort of know from the race circuit, and they have little stories. There's the Barkley mentioned, and obviously several runners on the Hard Rock Horse and stuff, and what they do to prepare themselves and how they overcome difficult moments. So Training for the Uphill Athlete, we'll be talking about this book and its content quite a bit more in future episodes, and link will be in the show notes for that. And then, lastly, you guys remember Mike Ehrhardt we had on the show a few episodes ago. Mm-hmm. He and Mirna Valerio are teaming up. Mirna Valerio is a very accomplished ultra runner, and they're teaming up to run the Trans Rockies run in 2019. And they're having a spot open on their team that you can apply and win entry for. So we will have a link in the show notes to all the information. If you are interested in a crazy summer camp for big kids, crazy adventure out with Mike and Myrna, they will help you train up. They will help you make sure that you will be ready for this and you can join them on that amazing run. That will be also in the show notes. So now that we're talking about show notes, BJ, Angela, what else should we add to the show notes? How should our listeners get in touch with you, follow you on social media, learn more about San Diego, the 100 race, and anything else that they should know about?
Well, I mean, you can go to our website, San Diego 100. Angela, do you know our Facebook?
Our Facebook is the official San Diego 100 Mile Endurance Run. We'd love to have you follow us, and that's a place where we've been introducing the key volunteers that we've been talking about throughout the show. So you can learn exactly who they are and how they came to be part of San Diego 100. Instagram, we're at SAN_Diego_100, all lowercase letters. And Twitter
is at the official San6. And we try to put up stuff on social media pretty often. Mostly we're trying to feature our volunteers and sponsors and information about the race. The sponsors are important to us because they allow us to keep the cost down for everybody. We have one of the cheapest 100 milers out there, and a lot of that is because sponsors help defray so many costs. So we're very grateful to all of our sponsors.
And their donations help us offer some of the best swag you'll get at any 100-mile race.
That is absolutely true. As you guys will find out when you apply for the 2020 version of the race.
All right, there we go.
You say that, and I'm like, I think I could do 100, and I haven't even finished a 50K.
Let me tell you what, Doug. If I can do 100, anybody can do 100. I guarantee you can do it.
I went from never racing to a marathon, and then I went from I did a 50K, 50 mile, and 100 miler within the span of, I think, 3 months. So,
wow.
Oh.
It's all out there.
I think you shouldn't overthink it too much.
That's right. Don't think too much about it. Just go do it.
There we go. Douglas, you heard that.
Stop. Finally, someone has given me permission to stop thinking. I am so just react from here on out.
Idea.
I
think I might have heard what I wanted to.
Perfect.
That's amazing. BJ, Angela, thank you so much for coming on the show. It was very, very much appreciated. I'm sure our listeners will love it. I will follow up with email in regards to getting all the links and everything, so we have them for the show notes. And Douglas, do we have anything else to talk before we hit stop?
We need to mention our race.
Oh, I guess we should, right?
I can't believe you forgot about the race we're putting on August 10th.
August 10th, littlebackyardadventure.com. Join us in Olympia for an amazing run around a local park.
If you've ever had a desire to see me with a bullhorn yelling instructions, show up.
There we go. And now that he's not thinking, it's going to be awesome.
Yes.
All right. We'll let you guys go. Thank you so much. See you next week.
Thank you.
See ya.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah,
Bye.
Thank you guys very much.